What's up, everybody? This is John with Archer Film. All right, so this next video, this is going to be a list of my favorite serial killer movies ever. It feels like these movies kind of fall into two sides. There's the people investigating, the police, detectives investigating the serial killer, uncovering clues, cat and mouse sort of thing. That's one genre. And then there is main character as serial killer, in the American Psycho or Monster or Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. I'm kind of going to avoid most of those, except for one, and I'm going to focus more on the detectives trying to solve the case films. And then there's one unique one thrown in the mix. It's kind of a hybrid, and it's fascinating and such a underseen movie, in my opinion. I saw it in the theaters, and it absolutely blew me away. It was a smaller film, and it's great. And then I have an older film that most people kind of overlook, but it is outstanding, and it falls on this list as one of the best serial killer movies ever as well. And I'm going to start with that one. It's called The Boston Strangler, starring Tony Curtis. And it's done so creepily. It's almost not documentary feeling, but there's a lot of split screen, a lot of really quiet moments where we're watching the Strangler do stuff like call girls and slip into buildings. There's a great sequence where we're watching the St. Patrick's Day parade in Boston while the killer's sitting down and watching the parade on TV with his family, and then he goes to kill someone. It's pretty amazing. And then there's a incredible performance from Tony Curtis at the end when he kind of goes back and forth between him being a regular family man and him being a killer. I think he's on the stand in the court. It's pretty miraculous, I think. The performances are great. It's a very quiet and unsettling movie. I think that one is definitely on this list. Next on the list is Cruising. Cruising is a William Friedkin movie starring Al Pacino. If you've not seen this, so in the 70s, there was a grip of cop movies, right? Thrillers. And, some of the best ones had Al Pacino in them, or they were made by Friedkin or Coppola or these guys, Scorsese. So this felt like it was one of that mix, but it is completely different. Al Pacino plays a detective who is trying to solve these killings that are in the gay community in New York City. So he has to pretend to be gay and infiltrate the gay clubs and all that stuff to try to find the killer. And it is outstanding. It was very controversial when this came out because they shot in real gay bars and all this stuff. And they just showed some really explicit things. And it has one of the best endings. Now, maybe nowadays there might be controversy over this sort of thing, but I think it is a fantastic ending. It's a little twist, and it's great. So check that one out, Cruising. All right, next on the list, we have Zodiac by David Fincher. It's almost like a procedural. So we have the cops investigating the Zodiac killings. We have this newspaper investigating it, and as well as this cartoonist who ends up figuring out the cipher. It's really good. Some really quiet and unsettling moments as well. Really scary stuff, very thought-provoking, and, it takes place over large swaths of time and distance, and it just kind of unfolds like a very complex puzzle, and it has a couple of great performances with Jake Gyllenhaal, Robert Downey Jr., Mark Ruffalo, and it has I thought the ending was pretty good. It's kind of unresolved, but I kind of liked it. Anyway, check that out if you haven't already seen David Fincher's Zodiac. All right, next is Sean Penn's The Pledge. Sean Penn has directed a handful of movies, and he's got 3 or 4 masterpieces in there. The Pledge, for me, is one of them, starring Jack Nicholson as a retired police detective who he's kind of working on this cold case with a bunch of murdered little girls, and he gives his promise or his pledge to one of the mothers that he will figure this out and he will solve the case. He gets tied up with this young mother and her daughter, and he becomes obsessed with trying to protect her from this serial killer. And it's just fantastic. It just has this way of catching hold of you and kind of subverts the genre at the end. It's him trying to figure this case out, trying to stop the killer before he does it again, sort of thing. But it's got a great ending, and it has a little bit deeper meaning than most of the films like this. All right, next up is Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. If you've not seen it, don't let the black and white fool you. This movie is good. It is thought-provoking. It is also unsettling. A couple of really famous scares, obviously, but it's got the great twist in the first act, which is miraculous, and then you have a great performance by Anthony Perkins. It's quiet, it's unsettling, and of course, by the time the twist happens and the ending unfolds, it is great. You're kind of left in shock. It's kind of the same with like Tony Curtis, which came afterwards, but it has that same sort of feel when you're like, oh my God, this guy is a lunatic. Again, I'm not going to count where we're following the killers like American Psycho or Texas Chainsaw Massacre, these horror serial killer ones, just directly into the investigating ones, or, in this case, and this is kind of a special case, Frailty. If you've not seen Frailty with Bill Paxton, check it out. It is amazing. It's about this guy who lives on a farm, and he starts to see demons in people, and he's tasked by God with dispatching those demons. The problem is they look just like regular people. So he enlists his two sons to help him kill regular people that he says are demons. And it goes back and forth whether, like, we don't know, is this guy crazy or is he really seeing the demons? Like, is he really doing God's work? It's fantastic. It's got Matthew McConaughey in it, Powers Booth, and has a great twist ending once again. And it's just a great, scary, kind of messed up movie, which I love. Obviously, Silence of the Lambs, it's close to being number one. It is fantastic. Obviously won the Oscar. It was like the first sort of horror movie to win an Oscar. Jodie Foster, Anthony Hopkins. It is fantastic. It is, it's thought-provoking. It's menacing. It's a great thriller. It's a great mystery with some of the most iconic performances. So if you've never seen Silence of the Lambs, you got to check it out. It is one of the best horror films ever made. But number one on this list, this is the best serial killer movie with detectives investigating it ever made, and of course, that is Seven. This tops some of my all-time favorite films anyway. Like David Fincher and what he was able to do with this, with the script by Andrew Kevin Walker. This script went around Hollywood, and the ending was so bleak and so dark that most people they loved reading it, but they weren't going to make it. Finally, they signed on Brad Pitt, and they were going to make it, but they wanted him to change the ending, the famous ending, and Brad Pitt fought for it. His star was rising. He had just been in Legends of the Fall, and he was about to blow up, and he fought for this dark ending from Fincher. And I think that this movie, not only did it solidify Fincher as a filmmaker, but it solidified Brad Pitt as not just a pretty boy, not just a star, but like an icon who has great taste. And if you look at some of the stuff he's produced under Plan B, you see that. Like some of these stars, Brad Pitt, Leonardo DiCaprio, they're not just stars. Like they have great taste in movies, and he understood fighting for that bleak, that dark, that messed up ending was the way to go, and it made the movie what it is. And if you've never seen Seven, that's all I'm going to say. It is the best serial killer movie ever made. Everything else is a pale copy of it as far as all the stuff recently. Anyway, that's it. Best serial killer movies. If you have any, let me know. Let me know some of your favorites, or if I'm missing like one that maybe really stands out that maybe I forgot about. All right, that's it. I'll see you in the next video.